Thank you all for being here. I am Erik Greenfield. I'm the communications manager for the Greater Madison Chamber of Commerce. Just before we get started, I want to get a little something out of the way. Some of you are probably thinking to yourselves, I feel like I've seen that headshot somewhere before. Okay, good. Well, we got a little recognition, laughter. We have some classic Simpsons fans. I'm glad to hear that. That's good. But seriously about me, I've been at the Chamber now for 8 years. My background prior to that is in radio and also in politics and government. Coming straight out of college at UW Oshkosh. Kelly, go Titans. I was a radio, TV, film major there, and I spent about the first 5 years out of college working in radio, on air, news, sports, all that kind of stuff, traffic. You name it, I did it as far as on-air things back here in Madison, but also for a few months in Sturgeon Bay right after graduation. And then I got into politics. I spent a little over a year, the tail end of Governor Doyle's term in his press office. Also spent 5 years helping run communications for the Assembly Democratic Caucus. And then here I am with the Chamber and talking to all you fine people. So one of my biggest roles for the Chamber is really, if I could distill it into just really one or two sentences, is that my job is to sell place. And now when selling place, it's important to understand the data and the information behind that. And so really one of the things that Marcia Lindsay, I'm sure many of you are familiar with her, from Lindsay Foresight and Stratagem. She's a member of our Chamber board as well. But one of the things that she likes to say is that the three core components of a strong, successful brand awareness campaign are that it is, sorry, I'm blanking now for a moment, authentic. Authenticity is very important, certainly, because if you don't believe it, it's not going to be a very successful brand campaign for you. Motivating speaks for itself, and differentiating. You've got to be unique, you've got to be special. So this presentation is all about giving a glimpse into that pitch, and so we can all be more effective as far as selling plays. And so I wanted to start off here with, if someone who doesn't live here thinks about Greater Madison, or Madison specifically, what do you think is the first thing that comes to mind?
University and Capital.
Okay. Anyone else? Farmers Market? Winter. Okay. Lakes. Yeah. Sure, absolutely. And I had some of those queued up here. Capital City is definitely something. Recreation, sports, athletics, exercise. Natural beauty. Cold College Town probably comes to mind from time to time. Or possibly it's even just Pleasantville, a nice place to live. Nothing wrong with that, certainly, right? A nice place to live, raise a family, grow up, things like that. But what we found several years back, when we were conducting a survey, is across the country, 70% of respondents had no brand awareness of Madison whatsoever. Now, you can look at that a couple different ways. One of them is that, obviously you want people to have a positive perception of what happens here in Madison, but also a blank slate, a blank canvas. Now, if we were to have a negative brand perception, if you think of a place like Flint, Michigan or something like that, where a few years ago they had some bad publicity, that makes it a little bit tougher to overcome. So at least we have a good starting point to help with our ability to recruit, and we can sort of write our own story. And so the company we undertook the brand perception study with was a London-based company called Brain Juicer. They're now known as System 1 Group, but that was to help give us leverage in today's talent marketplace. That's a little bit of information behind what the study that we undertook. The key things we were trying to measure was absolute appeal, basically if this idea will be successful in your market. Measuring relative appeal of an idea, So the difference between the percentage who feel an idea is the best versus those who think it's the worst, and also just emotional appeal. So those were some of the things that went into this study that we undertook. There are also 12 well-known brand archetypes. Based on our research, which of these brand archetypes would be authentic, motivating, and differentiating for Greater Madison? That is what we were really interested in learning a little bit more about. I don't know if you can read it. The type's a little small: idealist, realist, warrior, caregiver, seeker, lover, revolutionary, creator, sage, jester, magician, ruler. And some of the top line findings on how different demographics reacted to different motivating cases for Madison. As you can see here, down to earth is what resonated most among all respondents. So you go back to that Pleasantville thing. Nice place to live. It's something that we've been hearing a lot about, and we've actually been pushing to some extent as a community for quite a while. Even going back more than 3/4 of a century now, you can see the cover of a 1948 issue of Life magazine, The Good Life in Madison, Wisconsin. I don't quite know what that kayaker is up to, just lurking on the edge of the shore, but all in all, it looks like a nice place to live, that notwithstanding. But the quote from the actual story was, "A Kodachrome vision of what life in America could be, a vision of the idyllic life in a city big enough to have cultural amenities and a major university, but small enough to have trees, parks, lakes, and beaches, and seemingly infinite green space." Nothing wrong with that, right? Here's the thing, though. While Down to Earth resonated overall, it didn't really resonate, as you can see, with folks who are aged 26 to 34. It also didn't really resonate with people of color. In addition to that, if you think nice place to live in the Midwest, there's not really a ton of differentiation between that for us and a place like Ann Arbor or Des Moines or any number of other very nice places to live and raise a family in the upper Midwest. So what did resonate with people of color?
When you're saying resonate, they think it's a good thing or they think it's accurate?
They think it's a strong motivating case for Madison. So what did resonate with people of color and folks who are age 26 to 34? Thirst for knowledge is one. Also blazes trails, experiences over possessions. And that's really what we're looking to capture. We're working to tailor our brand to the future of the economy. And the demographics we're targeting are leaving places like San Francisco, Silicon Valley, and looking for places just like Madison. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But so of those 12 brand archetypes, what would you say seems like the right fit for what we're going for? No wrong guesses. Idealist? Okay. Seeker, caregiver? Well, what we're really going for here is the seeker. And really, if you read through this profile a little bit, you could also refer to them as trailblazers, explorers, iconoclasts, adventurers, pioneers. Here's the profile. Seeks to find themselves by exploring what the world has to offer, is open-minded, defines stick-to-itiveness, seeks the highest potential in self and others, tirelessly inquisitive, follows paths that are self-discovered, inspires others to explore uncharted territory, hike every trail, feel every moment. Now, that is something that really resonated with the folks that I mentioned in the survey. And thankfully, we have a little bit of history with the Seeker brand as well. So the Wisconsin idea flows from our university system. It's based on producing seekers. It's even, if you look at the plaque that's on the front of UW-Madison's Bascom Hall, we believe that the great state university of Wisconsin should ever encourage that continual and fearless sifting and winnowing by which alone the truth can be found. And nothing defines the seeker any better than that. So why does it matter? Well, the issue is, and Greg mentioned it a moment ago, is we are really working to find workers. And that is something that we are hearing all across our economy, all across various industries and sizes of businesses. Really, it comes down to job supply is outpacing demand. Simply put, we have a talent imperative. So that is our challenge It turns out everyone needed help recruiting talent when we were talking to employers several years ago as part of this brand perception campaign. These are some of the questions we asked employers. And so what we tried to do, because at the time we were asking these questions and we were getting these answers, but every employer that we were talking to was doing something a little bit differently, working on some of their own content, and not necessarily, I mean, certainly some intersection of what they were talking about and what they were working on, but it wasn't necessarily a cohesive whole. And so what we started doing was creating content ourselves. First, we created a website, meet-madison.com. The goal with that, to establish Greater Madison as the place to make a career, make a life, and make a difference. So that was the start. Then we made a video. Now I will say there used to be a music bed with part of this, but our licensing ran out, so I apologize for that. But you can get a little bit of a sense of what we were going for with trying to attract folks. And now this is a video that we shared freely with area companies, with state agencies who asked for it for the embed code. And so we got quite a bit of mileage out of that, thousands of views all over the world, as a matter of fact, even far-flung continents and things like that in some major cities and all around the country, and certainly in Wisconsin as well. But that gives you a little bit of an idea of what we were working on. It closes with Meet Madison, or Madison. Ground level for the next big thing. And so those are all good things. Those are all certainly things that we think were positive forces. But at the same time, experiencing Madison really matters. We know from having spoken to employers and asked them questions, they told us almost without fail that if they can get a potential recruit to visit our region, to visit our community, they're hooked, they're sold. So how can we make those experiences a little bit more accessible and a little bit more portable? To help us do that, first we had our Meet Madison virtual reality project. This is how it looked when it began with the Oculus Go headset. It's now expanded to next generation devices. And so you can get a little bit of an idea of what that looks like here. And this is what the inside of the headset looks like. So you can move around the home, you can interact with objects to take you to 360-degree experiences. Kayaking on Lake Monona is one example. An overhead view of Union Terrace is another experience. You can visit Olbert Gardens, you can hike at Devil's Lake. A lot of different opportunities to get people a little bit of a flavor of what Greater Madison is all about. And now you saw the Capitol out the window. I just want to state for the record, this is not an actual apartment. If it was, we'd be in flagrant violation of the law because it is taller than the Capitol. So I just want to clear that up right now. But that gives you a little bit of an idea of the 1.0 version of our virtual reality project. Now we're working on new ways to make these experiences even more accessible. This platform can be viewed on your phone or desktop right now. If you do have a Google Cardboard or phone VR viewer, you can scan this QR code that's up here just to get an idea of what it looks like right now. You can also visit meet-madison.com/view to view on your laptop or your desktop or anything like that. So hopefully that just gives you a little bit of an idea of where we've gotten to this point with our virtual reality. It so happens our talent recruitment efforts have coincided with a time of significant population growth for our region. We hear it all the time now. We know from the 2020 census, Dane County added 73,000 new residents over the prior 10 years. That accounts for about 1/3 of the state's overall population growth. And now we're starting to get data from the early pandemic years. You can see here, April 2020 up to the beginning of 2022. Dane County had the fastest proportional growth and largest numeric change over that time. The state overall grew a little under 1 percentage point, and then Dane County going on 4 percentage points over just that short amount of time. And now I said we know Dane County and Madison continue to lead the state in population growth, but also we are now one of the top 15 cities in the Midwest as far as overall population. something you may not have realized. And also, if you look at the arrows and where they're pointing, we're the only one of the top 15 as far as urban core centers that are still growing. And that's over that 2-year span. One other thing that we're seeing is Gen Z net migration. Madison is number 9 in the US right now. That's a big driving force behind our population growth. More than half of these new movers are not even students. So that's why Madison's currently number 1, according to LinkedIn, for Gen Z hires. We outpace Austin, Boston, the Research Triangle, a lot of major innovation hubs. So in your face to all of them. It also means that Gen Z has a larger role in our workforce. Gen Z makes up more than 1/5 of the workforce in only 5 US cities. And as you can see, Madison is one of them. All this combined is why Madison almost always ranks near or at the top of cities for young professionals. Very impressive, right? We also see very cool headlines and profiles like this. A young woman named Alex Akmal was featured in Insider. There was actually a couple different series where she was featured. Let me go back for just a moment, talking a little bit about affordability, the great atmosphere in Madison and why she chose here over New York or San Francisco, other coastal towns or coastal cities. And this one focuses a little bit more on Gen Zers coming to college cities after they graduate. So the world is taking notice of Greater Madison. As you can see, we have an authentic, motivating, and differentiating pitch to make to potential talent. I mean, just look at some of these headlines, like Tech's most resilient hubs through the pandemic, Madison number 1. Features in Inc. magazine, Forbes, a couple different features, couple graphics on relative home affordability to compare to some other major markets. This really cool one from a few years ago. This was just pre-pandemic. We need 10 more Madisons to foster tech growth in the heartland. That was from the Brookings Institute. So really, we are doing a lot of things right, and people are paying attention. Another thing, as far as the pitch that we want to make clear and that we've been making more and more as our closing argument, is actually centers around climate. Now, that often gets some snickers when we give this presentation in a place like San Francisco, that Madison, Wisconsin would be a big selling point, would be the climate. But here's really what we mean by that. It doesn't really mean sun and beaches, it means climate resiliency more and more. Resiliency against wildfires. You can see obviously the risks that are out west, Wisconsin, Madison, don't fall into that category. Hurricanes, deep south, Atlantic coast, again, missing Madison. Sea level rise, not so much an issue here. Most importantly is where will fresh water be? And Madison also fits the bill there as a Great Lakes state or as a Great Lakes region. And that's something that CBS Sunday Morning found that Madison is the only place that really fit the bill on all of those different categories when it comes to climate resiliency. So pretty impressive and a really good pitch to be able to have. And here's why. If you look at some of the studies that have been out in recent years, what are people willing to move for? And now it's familiar things like affordability and cost of living, safety, moving for a job, be closer to family and friends, things like that, but also effects of climate change starting to show up on these surveys. And so maybe not right at the top, but more and more as time goes on, it's possible that we could be seeing even more of that. And it's not really any one demographic or group of people or political affiliation or income level or anything like that. This is an issue across the board. People who are very hesitant to move to an area at risk of natural disasters, extreme temperatures, and or rising sea levels. So you can see that's a pretty good representation of the population right there. And then look at Gen Z, 71%. So, and that's really who we're trying to bring in more and more, even though we're having some success, but we need the talent of the future. We need to continue on this trajectory and even accelerate it. That's why it's important that we continue to understand what resonates with our intended audience and how people feel, why they came here, what keeps them here. Last year at our 70th annual dinner, some of you may have attended. I know some of you attended. I work with some of you. So we wanted to test out some hunches. The event's at Monona Terrace, and so we set up a string board where people could share with us where they were born, what generation they were from, what keeps them connected to the region, and also what they think about where Greater Madison is headed. So I'm just a little bit interested in the folks here. How many of you, raise your hand if you were born in Greater Madison or in Dane County? Okay, so not a ton, right? How many of you maybe weren't born here but grew up here and spent most of your upbringing here? Okay, still a pretty small percentage of the room, right? So how many of you moved here for college or job opportunities, professional work? Okay, there we go. That really improves the argument in a lot of ways right now. I will say a little bit, job opportunities, things like that were a big draw for me as well, coming out of college in Oshkosh. Now, political preferences were a bit of a factor for me as well. I grew up in a more conservative community in East Central Wisconsin. Now, that's certainly not everybody's preference, but that was interesting to me, and it's even getting bigger and bluer, as CBS 58 noted after the most recent Supreme Court election last year. And also, if I'm being honest, 22-year-old Erik was a little bit intrigued by this. This was shortly after the Princeton Review had named UW-Madison the top party school for the first time. I hear we came back to that a few years ago, but that tends to catch a young professional's eye in just at least a small way, if we're being honest. Also, I should mention I'm a big baseball fan. I'm a big Cubs fan, so I apologize to any of you who are passionate Brewers fans or otherwise, but the proximity to Wrigley North was too much to pass up, too. Hope you don't all hate me for that one. All right. I'll move on from that topic, I swear. But we keep coming back to this idea, and this is something that we had addressed, and if you were at any of our programs over the past year, the Chamber, it's really about what it means to belong. That's something that we've been working on and something that we've been messaging as a chamber and as a business community for much of the past year, and will continue to do so. And so we've been trying to figure that out a little bit ourselves as we've gone along. Now, there are certainly terms that are adjacent, at least, to belonging. Welcoming, for example, we tend to confuse welcoming with belonging a little bit, but welcoming is an external act. It's hospitality. You're welcoming someone into your group, into your space. A place or space being welcoming is more of a prerequisite for belonging, but they're not interchangeable. The same is true with inclusion. Inclusion is creating an environment that's welcoming, plus others are invited to fully participate, but you're still including others in something that is yours. By definition, the includer owns the space. It's possible to be included, but not to belong. It can be the difference between fitting in and belonging. So really, what is belonging? It just is in some ways, right? It's hard to define. It's internal, it's intrinsic, it's more of a feeling. It's not necessarily something that somebody else can make you feel. You need to feel yourself like you're part of something bigger. It's rooted in authenticity, ownership. Belonging is moving freely in space. It's moving as yours, not moving freely into the space of others. Belonging is the ability and desire to claim a space as your own, not separate from, but from within. So that's something that we've been really working on and trying to highlight, and how we can do a better job of making this place feel like this is a place where you and everybody else belongs and can be here and have success here. So what comes next for us as a community? At last year's annual dinner, the same time we were unveiling the string board, we unveiled a new umbrella brand called Be Madison. So Be Madison started as a local hashtag. It was by a group of young Madison tech leaders. It was a crowdsourced initiative to, quote, let the people in the city represent itself through images. And now you get a little bit of a sneak peek into the design and functionality of our new umbrella brand. It's going to be housed at bemadison.com. It's your new portal for everything talent recruitment. Last year, we also unveiled 2 additional new ideas. The first was whether businesses in Madison had the ability to access the best of the Chamber's data, information, and materials, including our pitch slides, which many people ask about. This summer, all of that will become a reality, as a matter of fact, and it will look a little something like this. So how much easier would it be to sell your company, job opportunities, if you had access to custom content that sold Greater Madison as a place? From demographics to economic trend lines to accolades and anecdotes, this is the Madison pitch, and it'll be your one-stop shop for pitching Greater Madison. The second idea was, what if Greater Madison had a talent recruitment website for diverse talent, and what if it was designed by and featured the content of people of color? So this is a good point to shout out our partners, Rashid Atlas from Atlas Design and Consulting, also Jamie Perez from Beyond Words Productions. They've been great partners in this project. This summer, MakeMadison.com will come to life. It'll feature authentic voices and stories of why Madison from the community. And this summer, I talked about version 1.0 a little bit ago. This summer, we'll also see the launch of version 2.0 of our VR talent recruitment project. Recruiting has gotten harder. This is the answer for it. It's got more space to explore, more experiences, more opportunities for your organization to participate. I'll show you what I mean here. It's a little bit of a different look from before. We've added some features. You can see Bucky now showed up where he wasn't before. A little bit of an expansion to the kitchen and dining area. There are new features and experiences I mentioned. You can visit Bascom Hill, Tenney Park. You can be part of live music on King Street. There are business tours. Madison College, for example, is in this video at one point where you're in the lobby of the Truax campus. There are also some UW sports experiences, and you will see what I mean in just a little bit. We will get to that in a moment. You can be center court at the Kohl Center during a Badger basketball game. Also, one of my favorites is coming up in just a little bit, but that would be running through the tunnel at Camp Randall Stadium. So I apologize, this is a few seconds away, but you can just get a little bit of an idea here of what the whole experience looks like. Still above the Capitol, unfortunately, but we'll try not to pay too much attention to that.
Erik, who does this go to? Who are you sending this out to?
So, excellent question. Here are the Badger players exiting the tunnel. You can be part of the, and there's actually music, there's sound with this captured as well. But, so that's my personal favorite. I do enjoy that one. Greg, to your question, I am actually going to get to that in just a moment because we've democratized this a little bit more. Real quick, one of the features that is also very cool, when you can change the seasons outdoors, so you get an idea of what Madison looks like at different times of the year. You can also see the table settings change based on what season you're in. The calendar itself changes, so there's some winter table settings, then you see snow on the ground. And then we're back to spring. We've got some spring appropriate table settings now. And then you click back out and you're back to spring. But Greg, to your question, there are some new opportunities for companies to get involved. Each platform partner now has a refrigerator magnet that, when highlighted, expands into a full billboard. It allows your brand and your recruitment pitch to reach even more people. If you want some more information about this and how you can get involved, we can definitely set you up with a demo and you can learn a little bit more about it that way. But just let me know, come see me afterward if you're interested. So that was a lot of stuff I just threw at you as far as things that are happening and things the chamber is working on, our current projects. We've been very busy over the past year. But if you're interested in getting updates about any of the projects that I just shared, go ahead and scan that QR code right now. I'll give you a moment to pull out your phones if you're interested in doing it. But we will be sharing updates with those individual lists going forward, so you can get an idea of when we're actually going to be rolling out some of these changes and some of these new initiatives. But otherwise, if you don't get a chance to do it now and you change your mind later, also let me know, and I'd be happy to hook you up with a link. I'll just give you another minute, just in case you're still working on scanning.
Erik, is there a discussion about the party reputation and kind of the pros and cons there?
I mean, that's not something we've really ever leaned into as an organization, but I think it's probably something where you can extract some positives out of it as far as people who are interested in building a fascinating happening life for themselves in Madison. The party reputation is not something we've ever given a lot of talk about as a chamber or as a business community, but it's also something that we know is out there, and Madison, Wisconsin in general, it comes up from time to time.
I noticed nobody listed it at the beginning, but
Yeah.
I went to college in western Minnesota, kind of by Fargo, and people would drive here for Halloween. So that was the one thing I knew about actually.
Yeah, I drove here for Halloween a couple times too, if I'm being totally honest about it. But yeah, it's not something that we necessarily put a lot of stock into. I'm sure the university isn't necessarily something they lean into as well, but it is something that comes up. And so in closing, just first of all, I want to thank you all for having me here today. The thing I really want to stress is the most successful places are the ones who sing from the same songbook, so to speak. And the ones who are on the same page as far as messaging and what we're doing as far as selling place. And so as marketers, it's on all of us to promote our successes and advantages, understand where people are coming from, also lean into our challenges a little bit more, understand what resonates. And if we can do that as a marketing community, if you can all join me, and not just necessarily a product, not just necessarily an individual company, but really selling Greater Madison as a place, I think we'll continue our trajectory with great success. So thank you all for having me. Really appreciate it, and happy to answer any follow-up questions any of you may have. But
if you have a question, raise your hand and I'll run over the mic for you.
I thought the presentation was very cool. The
Oh,
VR. How can I recruit skilled trade workers? Because that seems like a different level from this. And we definitely have a deficit in a lot of companies around town that needs more of that level that won't be in a condo like that.
yeah, I know we had some industry-specific conversations with folks during the pandemic, during the height of the pandemic, as far as just trying to get an idea of what individual industries we're seeing and what they found to be most helpful. If I can dig some of that stuff out, Brooke, I'd be happy to share that with you.
Thanks so much, Erik. Very cool.
Yeah, thanks, Ian.
I wonder if you could talk about the effect of Epic and kind of that piece on Gen Z.
Wow. Epic is certainly a big driver of incoming Gen Z talent. 10,000 plus employees and growing all the time. Epic being the largest private sector company, I think, in the state. Is that right? Just wholly private sector company in the States. They're a huge driver of our economy, certainly. They're a huge reason why Greater Madison is gaining more and more traction as a hub for health and tech innovation. And as far as the specific numbers, I don't have them in front of me for how many folks they're necessarily responsible for it, but it's definitely significant. They're recruiting Gen Z folks and younger talent all the time, and continuing to grow. Anyone else?
I'm just curious, when people are looking for places to move, how about the restaurant scene? Doesn't that ever get mentioned, or does that ever come up?
Yeah, I mean, the restaurant scene definitely comes up, and also if you go back to the meet-madison.com, our Meet Madison website, we lean into that a little bit more and talk about some of the things that you can do as far as just making a life here. That's one of the things that I always say about living here in this community is it feels like a community, and you can come to an event like this and see a lot of people you know and reconnect, but also a lot of the big city amenities, and the restaurant scene is certainly a big part of that. And we're very fortunate to have such scale and diversity as far as restaurant and food options in the city and in this region.
So I work in the healthcare sector, so I think that's another thing I would think we're known for in Madison is just the health systems and the growth that we have in the greater Madison area. I think it's always been a struggle for us to hire and retain physicians and staff and nurses and operation techs and so forth. Is that a part of your strategy as well? I'm just curious. How even we could partner with you, because this is really good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've done a lot of messaging and a lot of programming around health technology. We've maintained very close connections with not just the healthcare providers, who some of whom are on the chamber board, and we've worked very closely with, but also a lot of the companies. I mean, we've been working very closely with folks like Accuray, who have expanded here as far as talking about health technology. Obviously, Epic we talked a little bit about. We've leaned into messaging over the past several years over really making this the place for health innovation. And Health Tech Capital, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that initiative. That was a program and initiative of the chamber that we really started leaning into several years ago. And that's a big part of our thinking as well, because we know that just from the network here, not only for Greater Madison specifically, but if you talk about coming down from Minnesota with Mayo and all the other providers coming through there, and then you connect all the way to Milwaukee and Chicago, there's just an astounding number of companies and providers involved in the health tech and health innovation space. So that's been a big part of our messaging and our marketing over the past several years. All right, well, thank you everybody. If you think of anything, thank you.